Hi, everyone, and welcome back to our Wellness and Weight Loss Wednesday. I'm excited to share with you the rejuvenating benefits of improving your deep sleep as well as your REM sleep. I'll get into exactly what those mean in just a moment, but just know this, that every single night when you fall off into a slumber, your body begins the healing process. And so that's why when we talk about sleep, there's all these different hacks that people are talking about, how to get less sleep, how to get by with less sleep. Yes, I'll share some of that with you today. There's no doubt about it. But never skimp on your sleep. And that is because if you want to improve your overall hormones, if you want to improve your overall mood, your energy, your cognitive ability, your body's ability to stave off the three main causes of mortality, which is high cholesterol, inflammation-based, blood pressure, inflammation-based, and type 2 diabetes, inflammation and cellular-based. If you want to keep those at bay and you want your body to continue to heal on a daily basis, you have to make sure you're optimizing your sleep. One of the reasons why this is also so important is that getting into bed and just being there for 7 to 9 hours a night is not enough. It's really not. And that's because if you're not getting the minimum amount of REM sleep and the minimum amount of deep sleep, we'll talk about what that is, you are not truly rejuvenating your body. And that's why many years ago, many years ago, I was a complete insomniac. I really was. It would take 3 hours minimum to fall asleep. My mind was always racing. I didn't know how to calm down my body and my mind. And so sometimes I just wouldn't fall asleep. I literally it would take me 2-3 hours to fall asleep minimum, or I might never fall asleep that night. It was awful. I mean, it really is, especially when you're sick and you're trying to get well and you can't sleep. It's very difficult to be able to get well, lose the weight, or I would say live longer if you're not sleeping well. So that's why, for sure, I wanted to bring this show with you or to you today. So we have to think about this. And I will link up. So today's episode 1706. So 1706. Let's make sure I have that correct. Yes, 1706. And what I'll do is I'll actually link up another show I did on how many hours of sleep you need per night. So this is outside of REM and deep sleep. We're going to stick to that topic for today. But everyone falls within the 7 to 9 hours, and you can find out on that show how much you actually need per night. Now, the REM sleep, though, and the deep sleep does not change no matter who you are or even your age. When you're much younger, teenage years and younger, you actually need more. That's a different story. But a lot of people, and this is a fallacy, a lot of people believe we need less sleep as we age. It's actually not the case at all. It's just we get less sleep because our body tends to fall less into these 5 deep sleep stages, these 5 sleep stages. So let's get right into it right now. There are 5 main stages of sleep, with one of those being REM sleep. We'll talk about REM sleep, that rapid eye movement that a lot of people have heard about before. And then there's 2 other stages, 3 and 4, which go along with deep sleep. Okay, so before your body can ever get into that REM sleep, I know that's kind of like the most prized, but let's hold on a second. Deep sleep is just as important. And as our body's kind of moving from those beta waves to the alpha waves to the theta waves, as our brain waves are slowing down as we're falling into a sleep, our respiration is beginning to drop, our heart rate's beginning to drop. That is allowing us then to get into a deeper stage of sleep. Why is this important? Well, again, if we want to work on glucose metabolism, balancing healthy levels of blood sugar, if we want to be able to repair muscle and bone, if we want to work on short and long-term memory, like where all of those memories are filed away, if we're looking to work on hormone balance, like we always talk about thyroid hormone, we talk about the adrenals, you have to be getting yourself into those deep levels of sleep. And that's why when I was a complete insomniac, I was being medicated. I was put on Ambien, and that would leave me so groggy and like a zombie in the morning. It would only get me to sleep for about 6 hours. And then they switched me to Lunesta. And I thought Lunesta was this fantastic drug because, well, now I could stay asleep for a full 8 hours. But the problem is, it was not allowing me to get to these deep levels of sleep. And that's a problem, right? Just because your eyes are closed and you're kind of unconscious to the world doesn't mean that you're restoring your body. And that's what I later found out. So as I began to go through my healing process, as I met my mentor, as I began to study, overseas in all these different places, I realized that sleep is the cornerstone. It's one of the cornerstones to wellness, right? To overall wellness. And again, you can't be at a healthy body weight and maintain it easily without health. And you can't live a nice, long, healthy life without health, right? I mean, those things, you can't hack your way out of them. So that's why in the de-stress protocol, well, sleep is part of the rest formula, right? So it's super, super important. So I just wanted to bring it back, though. We're talking a lot about immunity lately. Well, you need your sleep in order to have a robust immune system. But it can't just be 7 to 9 hours. It needs to be in this deep sleep stage. So let's talk about deep sleep. Again, I talked about how it begins to restore energy, how it helps at a cellular level. It begins to repair the bone and muscles. It increases blood supply to all the tissue in your body, works on the short-term learning and memory, and also helps with growth hormone secretion, which helps to build and repair a nice, strong, healthy body. So what I'd like to share with you now is if you are tracking your sleep, and I do hope that you are tracking your sleep, at least for a little while, and I've been talking about it for a bit now. You'll see my little app right here. It's not mine specific, but I will link up the specific one that I'm using for sleep right now. And again, you can use any one. There's so many out there right now that begins to track your sleep. There really is. There are so many different apps, okay? And there'll be new ones coming out all the time. A future goal of mine is to really build, I would love to one day build this real lifestyle-based software that gives you creative feedback on how you're doing for your own bioindividuality. But not only that, that makes sure that you can turn off the EMF. So basically, you can turn off the Bluetooth and all that. But you'll see basically my deep sleep, and you'll also see my REM and light sleep. Now, for this, last night I got an hour and 37 minutes of deep sleep. I got 2 hours and 29 minutes of REM sleep, 3 hours and 59 minutes of lighter sleep. So if we look at that, it was about 8 hours on the dot of sleep, which is great. And I had one wake up right here, if you can kind of see that, it looks like somewhere maybe around 2 o'clock in the morning or so. It was a quick wake up. I don't even remember it. And then I went back to sleep. So all of these, again, our heart rate was in the 50s, which I look for myself. Some people are much lower, and that's great too. But again, so my sleep score was a 92 last night. That was a good night of sleep for me. They're not all that good. But again, you can track your progress. So for me, I try to get around 7.5, 8 hours of sleep per night. And this allows me to see much deeper as to what my deep sleep was and also my REM sleep. So deep sleep, remember, we are now shooting for, if we want to go by true statistics, I want you to learn how to look. I want you to learn how to use these apps and really look at it no matter who you're using, because I'm not playing favorites right now. But also, this is how you do take control of your health. Really, I mean, this is how you take back control of it. We're always looking to our doctors, medical doctors, whoever it might be, to kind of tell us exactly what to do. Well, this is it. We need to look at our diet, our exercise, our stress reduction, our toxin removal, our rest and sleep, our emotional balance, our scientific-based supplement protocols, and our success mindset. And that's the de-stress protocol. That's what I wrote about in the Rain Barrel Effect. That is how we get well and stay well, right? It's always teetering on that, and sleep is such a big part of it. Now, the nice thing is we can quantify most of this. I will link up the research today at stephencabral.com/1706. But research shows that your deep sleep should be about 13 to 23% of your total sleep. But there's a little caveat to this, because that is based on the healthy amount of sleep you should be getting. So people could say, well, I get 5 hours of sleep, so I only need about an hour of deep sleep. Not so, right? Not so. So I'll tell you about that at the end. But the minimum that you should be getting, so again, 13 to 23% on average, but the minimum is 90 minutes. So it should be an hour and a half, right? So an hour and a half to 2 hours I look at in terms of deep sleep. If you get an hour and a half to 2 hours, you're doing great. Anything more than 2 hours is pretty amazing. It really is. So that's deep sleep. Again, benefits of deep sleep that you're not going to get if, we'll talk about that towards the end. Some of the things that throws that off, okay? So, but again, improving energy, improving mood, improving glucose metabolism, improving hormones like thyroid, adrenals, boosting natural sex hormones, boosting growth hormone as well, repairing the entire body. 90 plus minutes of deep sleep every single night, all right? That's what we're aiming for. So next up is REM sleep. Well, REM sleep stands for rapid eye movement. So the importance of REM sleep is the same rejuvenation of the body, but in a different way. And here's what happens. It happens a little bit later, okay, in the night after you've gone through some of your other stages of sleep. You start to get the relaxation of the muscles, there's no doubt about it, but your respiration actually increases, so your respiratory rate. Heart rate can begin to increase a little bit. Brain activity begins to increase. So in terms of a neurological function, making new synapse-based connections. And at this point, we can actually start to get the face, the fingers, the legs twitching. Even though the muscle relaxed, you're getting these nervous system-based, the neurons firing off, and you can actually see a little bit about, rapid eye movement, right? As the name sounds. So you can get sometimes a little bit of those twitches. You might see that with your kids a lot more because they could be in a longer level of REM sleep as well. And they seem to get into it a whole lot faster too. So just keep in mind that our body kind of moves in sleep stages, moves in, moves out, moves in, moves out. And if you have a good tracker, you're able to look at that. Now, this is the importance of REM sleep, and this is why I'm doing this show here today. REM sleep should actually be greater than deep sleep, okay? So it's about 20 to 25% of total sleep. So if you look at it, it's not necessarily double what you're getting for deep sleep, but it's about an extra half hour to maybe even sometimes an hour. So what I look for a good night of REM sleep is 2+ hours. A good night of deep sleep, 90 minutes, so 1.5 hours or more. A good night of REM sleep, 2 hours or more. So if you look at that, you'd say, well, that's going to be then about 2.5 hours. Is that correct? No, 3.5 hours to 4 hours of good, deep, and REM sleep. Those are the most restorative. So that means that if we're really looking at this, 40 to 50%, okay, 40 to 50% of your total sleep is spent in deep or REM sleep. Why do I bring this up? Why am I making such a big deal about it? Well, here's why. You can put yourself to sleep with cough medicines and NyQuils and all Benadryl like I used to do at night. I mean, when I was younger, teenage years and through college, my cocktail to get to sleep was Benadryl at night. Again, Sudafed in the morning to wake me up, Benadryl at night. And it was all sorts of Ambien, Lunesta, you name it. Because that's what medical doctors were giving me to say you need to get to sleep. Because I would only, fall asleep at maybe 3 in the morning and I'd have to wake back up at 6 or 7 o'clock for class, right? So not ideal for repairing the body, but I still felt like a zombie all day long. So what I began to realize was there's so many things that you can do in order to improve your own sleep naturally. Back then, I didn't know anything about REM sleep. I didn't know anything about deep sleep. But for sure, I knew that I should be in bed about 8 hours a night. And that makes sense. Most people with a wellness-based issue should be in bed 8 to 9 hours per night. But again, you can find how much you need uniquely based on body type, dosha, etc. On the podcast that I'll link up at 1706. What I want to share with you right now, just because I do have a little bit of time, is what kicks you out of these specific forms of sleep, okay? So those people that are not getting that 90+ minutes of deep and that 2+ hours of REM sleep, oftentimes they'll be drinking alcohol before bed. That's a big one. It really is. Your body has to detox at a greater level. It has to get all that ethanol basically out of the body and also the toxins that come along with that. Because there's toxic byproducts such as ammonia, specific types of acids, etc. Now, the other part is going to bed later. If you don't get to bed by 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at the latest, but again, you want to be in bed really between 9 and 10 if possible. I find it very difficult to get in bed before 10 with kids, a family, all that good stuff. But I am able to get to bed. That kind of compromise with myself is at 10 p.m. So yes, I try to get into bed before that, but challenging. But I find that if I'm in bed by 10, it's still enough hours before midnight or enough time between 10 and 2 where the body is most likely and more likely to get into a deeper level of sleep. And you will find that. So if you go to bed later, sometimes you don't get as much good quality deep sleep. Really, really important to look at that. And then, of course, that would throw off your REM sleep. One other thing I share with you, too, is this. A higher level of stress that day or really working right up until bedtime, the body's more amped up. It's producing more cortisol, more norepinephrine, more stress hormones, and that means it's producing less melatonin, right? So if you're producing less melatonin, the likelihood that you're going to be able to reduce those stress hormones, because they're an inverse relationship, meaning the more cortisol you produce later at night, the less likely you're going to produce melatonin. The more melatonin you produce, then the less likely you're going to produce cortisol, because they work in an inverse pattern, which is why part of our sleep protocol is using, at least for a period of time, some liquid melatonin, which is non-groggy forming. And then we also use things like ashwagandha, L-theanine, phosphatidylserine that help calm that HPA axis, which is what tells the adrenals to be on overdrive in the first place. So yes, there's a lifestyle aspect to calming the mind, calming the body before bed, going through your breathing, going through your stretching, your relaxation modalities that I'm going to follow up. I'm going to do a show next week that takes you through how to actually get into this deeper sleep and REM sleep. I promise to do that next week. I wanted to bring you the information on how to track it this week, what kicks you out of it. And of course, by knowing what kicks you out of it, you will learn a lot of what not to do. And then next week, I'll bring you step by step my top, let's say 7 and 10 tips, like not a million tips, 7 to 10 tips that you'll be able to use to begin increasing that deep sleep and REM sleep right away. And I'm telling you right now, if you increase it, within 3 to 4 weeks, you should actually start to feel the difference, meaning more energy, better mood, more ambition, more drive, stronger endurance, better libido, better mental, cognitive performance, all of those things. I mean, you really will. It's a game changer. And if you keep doing that over the course of 12 to 16 weeks, as your body begins to rejuvenate, again, night and day, game changer, like without a doubt. And you'll notice it now if you ever go back to some of those, which I hope that you never do, medications that keep you out of those deeper levels of sleep. Okay, couple other things. Higher temperature in your bedroom, right? So this is a tip of what not to do. Higher temperature in your bedroom, sweating hot at night, can kick you out of your deeper sleep and REM sleep and just keep you at a lighter stage of sleep, right? Because if you're not in deep sleep and you're not in REM sleep, you're in the lighter stages of sleep. They're called NREM, right? Non-rapid eye movement. So we don't want, now there's of course about 50%, 60% of your sleep is in those zones. And yes, they are helpful. There's no doubt about it. But the longer you're in those, the less time you're in then deep and REM, which is far more restorative. So keep your bedroom temperature cooler. Again, that's going to be one of the tips that I give you next week. But if you are sleeping right now and the temperature in your room is above 69 degrees, it's most likely too hot for your body. And you could be having too many wake ups because of that. Because ideally, you go to sleep and you don't wake up throughout the night. That's an ideal world. 1 or 2 wake ups is not the worst thing if you just, all you do is you kind of wake up for a second and then you roll over and go right back to sleep. And that's because every 90 minutes, you're coming in and out of sleep cycles for the most part. So just remember that. So a little wake up where all you do is basically wake up, roll over. That's really not terrible. It honestly isn't. It's not going to affect your overall performance for most people. Children, you'll see the sleep cycles are more like 40, 45 minutes. Anybody that has a baby sometimes knows that they could wake up in 40 minutes, 45 minutes. For adults, it's about a 90-minute sleep cycle. Okay, the last big I want you to do is I want you to make sure that you're not exposing yourself to a lot of light before bed. Blue light predominantly, but you need to tell your body that it's actually bedtime, right? So naturally, again, if you were, I got the opportunity to actually camp outside this past summer. And I love camping. I really do. I don't have as much of an opportunity to do it as much anymore. I'm hoping that my girls will start to want to do camping a little bit more and I can take them. And then that's a nice little break for my wife as well. But what I want to be able to do is really, I'd say, set it in for them and reinforce it for me, that being able to say, okay, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock at night, we need to start winding down the body. And by 8 o'clock, it's dark most of the time. And that is the time, that's the signal that the body begins to say, okay, because we have light receptors in our eyes and on our skin. And it tells the body to begin to produce more melatonin naturally. Remember, your body is a storehouse of the chemicals that it needs, hormones, and it manufactures vitamins and minerals and neurotransmitters to tell our body exactly what to do. So when the light starts to go, basically as the sun starts to set, we begin to see a different color of rays from nature into our eyes. That naturally turns down the blue light that would be available during the day. And from there, our body says, okay, we're actually going to ramp down cortisol. That's a good thing. You should actually start to get a little bit tired at night. We don't need to be amped up until bedtime. And then melatonin starts to rise, and we can then fall asleep naturally in under 20 minutes. That's the goal. When your head hits the pillow, you fall asleep naturally within 20 minutes. And again, now that I fall asleep within 10 minutes of my head hitting the pillow, I don't even know who I am anymore. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's absolutely amazing to me that I'm a great sleeper now, that I'm not a complete insomniac, because for about 27 years of my life, I was a complete insomniac. Even at 10 years old, I was a complete insomniac. I just didn't know it was strange back then. Like, that's the thing. Nobody told me it was strange. And now, I look at this sleep, and I can see over the period of weeks and months that my sleep is right where it should be. And I think that's one of the reasons why. Again, it's the whole de-stress protocol. But when my sleep is on point, it allows me then to say, okay, I'm going to push a little bit harder today. I'm going to get in my workout today. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And the last tip I did say I would share with you is this. And I want to make sure I get this in, and then I'll bring you the factors for improving your deep sleep and REM sleep next week. But big factor with all of this is that if you are someone that can only get 7 hours a night, and sometimes it's maybe even a little bit less, but I don't want to let you off the hook. But let's say for a period of time, it's maybe a little bit less. If you still get 90 plus minutes of deep sleep and 2+ hours of REM sleep, you can at least compensate for that. Meaning the more deep sleep you get and the more REM sleep you get, the more total sleep, the less total sleep, I should say, that your body is going to need. Now, that is not an excuse. That's not an excuse for getting less than 7 to 7.5 hours of sleep a night. I don't let myself off the hook. I mean, I'll get 7.5 hours of sleep Monday through Friday for the most part. And then I do catch up a little bit more on the weekends. But I want to make sure that every single night that I'm getting 90 plus minutes of deep, 2+ hours of REM. So if you're not tracking your sleep, I think it is a game changer. I really do. I would look into any different app that works for you. Ideally, one that allows you to turn off the Bluetooth, turn off the EMFs overnight. So hopefully this was helpful. More to come, a little summary next week, and then more to come actually how to get into and achieve deeper sleep as well as more REM sleep. Thanks so much for tuning in. Take care, and I will talk with you soon.